What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the Coffee Pod. My name is Chishu Zed.
Drink the coffee, it'll make you feel better.
Woman compares her dating preferences from age 18 versus 28. I thought this was an actually very interesting video, so yeah, try to watch this one to the end. Let's get it.
So I'm watching Indian Matchmaker and I find it so interesting what characteristics people place importance on. Then it got me thinking, like, I also had some crazy preferences when I was 18. So I wanted to do a comparison of my dating preferences over the past 10 years. You couldn't talk to 18-year-old me if you weren't at least 6'2" or above. I don't know what it was, but there was something about a tall man to me that made me feel like it was more important than kindness. Like, I don't know. Number 2, athletic build. I loved athletes. You could have been a basketball player, soccer player, football player, didn't matter. But I quickly learned that all the guys that I dated that were athletes had like 5 girlfriends. There was even one guy I talked to for like 2 years. And then after 2 years, he was like, oh yeah, my ex-girlfriend's pregnant. And yeah, he was the father. Number 3 and 4 is nice, smile, and funny, but this is a lethal combination, okay? The guy will do something wrong, and he'll just smile at you with his pearly white teeth and make you laugh a little bit, and that laughter becomes laughing gas because you're back in the delusion, okay? You completely forgot what had just happened, how he had did you wrong.
All right, so far, I just want to point out some very obvious things. 18 years old, of course. Women are pretty simple when it comes to what they find attractive in their man, because at that age, they don't really need much from men. Of course, I'm talking about like provision, a man who, you know, is resourceful, has resources, etc. So it makes sense that younger women would have a shorter list of qualifications. Let me not say shorter, but more simple and qualifications that mostly center around physical appearance. If you notice, those are physical appearance, height, athletic build, nice smile, and then the funny thing, you know, is a personality thing, which is the only thing that's outside of those looks. Let's keep listening.
Now, my preferences at 18 weren't that bad, but as I got older, I realized like what I was looking for in men then aren't characteristics that really matter when you're trying to build like a really great partnership. It's also why my relationship didn't manifest into anything material, because everything I was looking for was rooted in superficial needs.
And that makes sense because this all stems from women loving opportunistically. And at that age, a woman is staying with her parents. She doesn't really need you for much. Her parents are paying her bills. They're taking care of her. But that changes as she gets older. Let's keep watching.
Now what I look for is emotional intelligence. And if you didn't know, there are 5 components to emotional intelligence. But of the 3 that are really important to me are self-regulation, empathy, and self-awareness. Another thing I look for is sense of humor. Before it was funny, but I realized that I have a dry sense of humor, and sometimes people who are quite emotional or sensitive, I should say, don't respond well to a dry sense of humor. So someone who has a good sense of humor is important. Forthcoming. I believe there's a difference between being honest and being forthcoming. I want someone to give up the information without me even asking. Kind-hearted. I feel like being nice is what you do, but being kind is who you are. I hope that makes sense. I could have put hardworking, but I actually look for someone who has passion, because I kind of feel like when you are passionate about something, hard work is a byproduct. Adaptable. We are never going to be who we are over the course of our partnership. So I want someone who is going to be able to adapt to the newer versions of who I become, just as I'll be able to adapt to the newer versions of who they become. Another thing I look for is someone who's educated. Now, it doesn't have to be formal education, but education is something that's important to me. And the last thing is for real. Like, don't waste my time. Like, seriously, be for real. A man who cannot state his intentions at the start of our relationship is just not for me.
Well, something really interesting that I want to point out real quick is notice how her list of qualifications doubled, literally doubled in just a decade. A lot of women 28, approaching 30, you know, when they hit that epiphany phase where they start to realize like, okay, I need to have kids because that biological need to reproduce is kicking in. When you ask those women what they're looking for, in my opinion, I think what they prioritize is usually still very immature. It's a lot different from what women in the past prioritize. I'm talking about modern women versus more traditional women of the past. For example, emotional intelligence is at the top of the list. Next is sense of humor. Forthcoming. So forthcoming, you know, I'm assuming she's talking about like being honest and don't cheat on me. Lots of womanism here. She goes on to say kind-hearted. That's a good thing. Passionate. And she said, instead of putting hardworking, she said passionate. So she really means hardworking. Here's where she starts to talk about things that really matters. A man who can provide. A man who could hopefully release some pressure, financial pressure off you and help provide financially to a degree in your life. These are the important things now. Adaptable. Adaptable to me sounds more like, I would switch that out for like competence, right? And like being competent enough to know how to adapt within different difficult situations. Educated at the very end. And another thing here that's worth mentioning is the average woman gets married around 28.5 years, 28 and a half years. So guys, that was actually the end of the video. As always, we're gonna check out a few of these comments. Let's see what people have to say. First comment here comes from a gentleman and it says, wait another 2 years and the bar will be anyone who can tolerate me, laugh out loud. You would think that's the case, but it's not. That's not the case. Most women after 30, when they hit that wall, you would think would be more humble and maybe consider drinking some coffee, even though they don't like it.
This coffee smells like shit.
But that's not the case. Most women after 30 have a list that's twice as long as the one that was around 28. Now they have an unrealistic economic standard because as time goes on, she is moving up in her career, making more money, and then expecting the next guy to make either the same amount or more than she is. Another woman here says, right on target, he's still gotta be 6'2" and above. Again, we have a woman here who agrees, 28 years old. The only difference with her is she still requires a man to be 6'2" and above. And we know that's like a small percentage of men out here today. Next comment, another chick here says, girl, agreed with all this. We thank God for growth. Laugh out loud. 28 is doing me right, although it has been a challenge finding a man with all of these. Yeah, I bet you her list is longer. It's gonna be a challenge. The funny thing is, as time goes by, most men's list gets shorter. It's like you think you want a woman who can sit there and have all these deep discussions. After a while, you're like, man, I just want a nice, kind woman who can cook for me once in a while. That is all, right? And knows how to respect a man, of course. Next comment, this is actually a thread. It starts off with, standards gonna lessen in the next 10 years. Laughing emoji. I don't think so. What do you guys think? Comment down below. Not from what I've seen. Just think of all the videos we've seen of elderly women describing what they're looking for in a man. They become more complicated with what they want. So the actual creator who made the video responded back to that comment and said, laugh out loud, I'll never lower my standards. Oh man. Another woman added to this conversation and says it's the opposite actually. The older we get, the more selective we are. I told you, right? The older they get, the more selective they are. The more mouths, the more bodies, the more dudes have busted those cheeks, the more they expect you to pay full price for a used item. Somebody explain to me how that makes sense, because I haven't heard an explanation that does yet.
Drink the coffee, it'll make you feel better.
Another gentleman added to this conversation and said, ha, selective is a coping mechanism for I'm not good enough for my standards, so I'll stay single. That's a pretty good point. Next, we have another comment here that says, moving from selecting on superficial traits to selecting on meaningful traits is part of growing up. Meaningful and realistic, might I add. Next comment here from another woman says, I think it's completely okay, 18, to want those categories simply because it won't last anyway. So have some fun with a handsome lad while you're young and let him beat it from the back, is what this chick just said. Another person responded back to her and says, yeah, but it lowers your chance to be happy with other partners. Listen, man, curious to know what you guys think. Comment down below. I thought this was a pretty interesting video. As always, I appreciate y'all for checking out yet another episode of The Coffee Pod. Till next time, I'm out. Peace.